Alex Eala had just finished her first ever Australian Open, and honestly, it still takes a moment to fully absorb everything that unfolded in Melbourne. On paper, the results weren't what anyone was hoping for. A first-round exit in singles and a first-round loss in doubles. But if you think that's the full story, then you completely missed what actually happened at Melbourne Park. This wasn't just about tennis. This was about a 20-year-old shouldering the expectations of an entire nation while the world watched her every step. Let me set the scene for what that Monday looked like. Alex walked onto court 6 for her singles match against Alicia Parks, and outside the gates there were thousands of Filipino fans lined up trying to get in. Thousands. The line stretched hundreds of yards across Melbourne Park. Security clearly wasn't prepared. People waited for hours just hoping to catch a glimpse of her. BBC's Ann Kiavong was watching and even said on live radio, "I couldn't believe the queues." Who's on the scheduling team? Because here's the issue. Court 6 only holds around 1,500 people. The tournament placed arguably the most popular player on site onto a court that couldn't even accommodate half the fans who showed up. And then Eala came out blazing. A 6-0 first set, total domination of Parks. Sitting there watching, it felt like this was the moment. 23 minutes, and Parks couldn't win a single game. Eala was ripping winners off both sides, her serve was clicking, her movement looked sharp. The Filipino fans crammed into that small stadium were losing their minds, flags waving everywhere, chants echoing non-stop. It genuinely felt like Manila had been dropped right into Australia. Then the second set began and everything flipped. Parks made adjustments, started taking the ball earlier, using Eala's pace instead of trying to overpower her, and Alex started missing at the worst possible times. Shot selection became shaky. The confidence she showed in the first set suddenly disappeared. Parks took the second set 6-3, then the third also 6-3. Final score 0-6, 6-3, 6-3, 1 hour and 31 minutes that went from dreamlike to heartbreaking. But here's the part that really stuck with me. After that loss, Alex walked into her press conference and somehow managed to lead with gratitude. When she was asked whether the Australian Open made a mistake by not putting her on a bigger court, she didn't complain. She said, "Yeah, it was so heartwarming. That's one of the things that makes a loss like today a little bit harder. I know a lot of people were rooting for me, but at the same time, Alicia played really well. And I just hope that the support continues with the losses along with the wins." Pause on that for a second. A 20-year-old just lost her Grand Slam main draw debut after winning the first set 6-0 with thousands of fans who traveled just to see her play. And her concern isn't excuses or blame. She's worried about whether people will still support her after a loss. That's not normal. Most players would be hiding from the media or deflecting responsibility. Alex is standing there thanking people and hoping they don't turn away from her because she lost. She kept going. The fact that everyone came out and really squeezed into that cozy court, I really appreciate it. I felt so loved even when I was 5-2 down in the third. I still felt the love, so I'm really appreciative and super thankful. Even when she was down 5-2 in the deciding set and the match was essentially slipping away, she still felt the support. That tells you everything about who she is. And then it went deeper. When asked about handling all the attention, she admitted something refreshingly honest. "Yeah, it's a process to take it all in. I think this week there were definitely elements that were a bit overwhelming, especially during my practices. I honestly didn't expect that kind of turnout. People usually show up for matches, not practice sessions. Most players warm up on empty courts with maybe a handful of loyal fans watching. But for Eala, hundreds of people came just to see her hit balls before the match even started. At just 20 years old, she's already learning how to handle attention that's normally reserved for established top 10 players. Then came Tuesday and the doubles match against Magda Linette and Shuko Aoyama. Eala and her Brazilian partner, Ingrid Martins, started strong once again, racing out to a 4-love lead in the opening set. Watching it, it felt like they had learned from the previous day and were finally going to close it out. That didn't happen. Linette and Aoyama won 5 of the next 6 games, forced it to 5-all, and then took the set in a tiebreak. It followed the same pattern as the singles match, a dominant start followed by a difficult finish. Eala and Martins responded by winning the second set 6-2, leveling the match and briefly creating a sense that redemption was coming. But in the third set, they quickly fell behind 0-4. At that point, most players would mentally check out. Instead, Eala and Martins fought back to 3-4, highlighted by a wild six-game that went through 5 deuces, with neither of them willing to quit. In the end, Lynette and Aoyama closed it out 6-3. Just like that, Eala's Australian Open run was over. No wins in singles, no wins in doubles, first-round exits in both events. Hours later, Eala posted on Instagram, saying that being able to play there was a privilege, one that must be earned, and spoke about learning, growing, and enjoying the experience. She thanked Melbourne and moved on. After 2 painful losses, she wasn't making excuses or dwelling on disappointment. She was choosing gratitude. She continued in her Instagram story, talking about the overwhelming support she received throughout the week and how deeply moving it was to see her work touch so many people. She described tennis as something shared, something bigger than just herself, and said this year's Australian Open would be an experience she carries forward as she keeps working. She ended it simply, "See you next year." Now the numbers tell an incredible story. Eala's pre-tournament press conference pulled in 171,000 online viewers. Carlos Alcaraz had around 29,000. Coco Gauff had about the same. Aryna Sabalenka, the world #1, drew roughly 9,000 viewers. Eala alone surpassed all of them combined. Her match highlights and press conferences generated more YouTube views than Novak Djokovic and Alcaraz together. That's not an exaggeration. When she was asked about those numbers, she stayed grounded. She said she was nowhere near the level of legends like Djokovic or stars like Sabalenka and Alcaraz, and spoke with clear respect for all of them. But then she pointed out something that truly mattered. She explained that she was the only Filipina in the draw this year, and possibly the only Filipina ever to compete in it, and that there were positives to take away from that. Alex Eala is, in fact, the first and only Filipino woman ever to compete in the Australian Open main draw in the tournament's entire history, dating all the way back to 1922. Not just this year, in more than 100 years of the event, she's the first. Regardless of what happened in the matches, that makes her a trailblazer. She's opening doors for young Filipino girls who pick up a racket and dream of playing on stages like this. One fan, V, a Filipina who traveled from Sydney just to watch her, told BBC Sport that Eala always carries the flag and the country with pride, something that deeply resonates with people. She described Eala as a growing national hero, with fans stopping what they're doing just to tune in and watch her matches. Back in the Philippines, people were adjusting their routines to watch Alex Eala play tennis. In a country where basketball dominates and boxing and volleyball rule the spotlight, tennis had never been mainstream until Eala started breaking barriers. Some critics complained that Filipino fans were too loud, cheering opponents' mistakes and being disrespectful. V defended them, saying the excitement came from joy, not malice. It was the first time a Filipino player had ever competed there, and emotions naturally ran high. Maybe the crowd did get a bit carried away, but considering the moment, the first Filipino woman in Australian Open history playing in a packed, intimate stadium, it's hard to blame them. That said, Parks deserves real credit. After losing the first set 6-love with virtually the entire crowd against her, she found a way to stay composed and win. That's champion mentality. Kayung summed it up perfectly, giving full credit to Parks for dropping the first set without winning a game, facing a hostile crowd, and still managing to hold herself together and come through. That resilience, under those circumstances, was genuinely impressive.